So, how do we get healthy?
So last time we spoke, we really talked about, we defined healthy and kind of what this series that we'll be doing and talking about is. And I think we even came up with the funny name, the eat like a mensch. And now it's, in addition to the quality of the food that we're eating, it's really how we're approaching the food that we're eating. But it doesn't just apply to our food, but really other areas of our life. How do we approach it mindfully and in a present manner? And today I wanted us to really dive into something I'm passionate about and struggled with growing up, but now feel like it's one of my own strengths, is the mindset aspect of it. Because when let's say it comes to nutrition or exercise or studying or praying for that matter, it all the physical things or the element of it is important, but also our mindset, our attitude towards it helps us get in a state to where we can, whether it's a seemingly problem or exercise, whatever it may be, we can approach it in a, less straining way, a lot more of a joyful way. Obviously, that would require definition, what really internal joy is, but how to look at things in a positive way that ultimately, it's all from heaven and it's here to elevate us. Like we just learned in last week's parsha, or even this week's parsha in Vayera, God tests Abraham, Nisa, but the word Nisa also means elevate. So if we can, in that moment, we have a challenge in our life, maybe it's an injury or something's not going our way, how we often want it to go our way. If we can see, oh, this is a test, a Nisa, it's here to elevate us, we can step out of our own mental limitation often of trying to solve it, of trying to force an outcome, and learn from it and see how it guides us to a solution.
Okay, that's a heavy topic. Here's the thing. Every interaction involves a giver and a receiver, a cause and an effect. When you sit down to eat, who is the giver and who is the receiver? Generally speaking, people tend to become the receiver. So the attitude in the mind is your relationship with the food is that the food will give you. You are the receiver. The food will give you pleasure, will entertain you, will nourish you, will nurture you, and will keep you healthy. So you're like the beggar pleading with the food to give you what you need. That's putting yourself at a disadvantage. Already it's not healthy because the human being is far superior to the food he eats. And that's what it means. It is not by bread alone that man lives. Don't become subservient to the food. Don't beg. Please feed me. Please give me pleasure. Please nurture me. Don't demean yourself by becoming the recipient to the food. What is the alternative? The alternative is you're the master, and you will do with the food what you're supposed to do with food. And it makes me think of people in the concentration camps who reached a certain mental state of anguish that they couldn't eat. They were done. And somebody had to literally, like a baby, get them to open their mouth and put a little food in there. In other words, the appetite was gone.
Mm-hmm.
You weren't depending on the food anymore. You had given up. Now, the argument was be a mensch and eat something. Now it was a question of where is your authority? Get your act together, be strong, and eat. So the strength can't come from the food. You have to have the strength to eat the food. In other words, you have to have the right mental attitude.
Yeah.
The right mental attitude is I'm a human being, I have a life to live, I've got goodness to accomplish, I've got a mission for which I was born, and if it takes a little food to fuel that, then fine, fill my tank. But I'm in charge, not the food.
100%.
In other words, if you're eating for a purpose, it's like when you were a kid. Remember, your parents would call you and your mother would call you in for dinner, and you're in the middle of a game and you don't want to eat. Eating was such a burden because you had such fun things to do. You had life to live. You had to take out time to eat. It was annoying.
Still kind of is.
And all of a sudden, we get a little older, and it's like in the middle of lunch, we're thinking, so what are we going to have for supper? When did you become a slave to the food? When did your life become so boring that you're looking forward to a meal? That should never happen. You've got a life to live, but you got to make a pit stop every now and then and feed the body so you can keep going. But you're deciding, I'm going to feed my body now. Just like I take care of my car, I change the oil, I check the tires. I'm not a slave to my car. I'm the master of this ship. So I got to take good care of the ship. I'm not a slave to the ship. So that's eating with a healthy attitude.
So how do you work on that, and how do you help other individuals? Because gearing this topic on the attitude, the mental approach, but often we can find ourselves or put ourselves into a level of stress or emotional overwhelm, and that leads us to often go for food. So how have you found a healthy, how have you found a good tool, and when you notice that, to not go reach for whatever the food may be, but to maybe take a few moments, tune into your body and say, am I hungry, or am I just feeling stressed? And also, just a side note, so most of the time it's also we feel that we're hungry, but we could just be dehydrated. But I'd be interested in hearing your
So,
tool.
so
What's superhero Rabbi Manis Friedman's tools?
what you're describing is the answer to the question. When you're feeling down, when you're feeling miserable, you eat, which means you're literally on your hands and knees begging the food to give you life. And you know that's unhealthy. It's so unhealthy to eat when you're needy. You're looking to the food not just to keep your body going,
Mm-hmm.
you're looking to the food to keep your soul going. That's ridiculous. You're asking the food to give you life. It can't give you life. It can maintain the life you have. But if you don't have a life and you're looking to the food to give you a life, not good. All you're going to do is gain unhealthy weight. So my mother used to say to us, you cannot sit by the table with a sour face. And we thought she was
Smart woman.
she because she was insulted that we didn't enjoy her food or something. No, you cannot eat food to make up for your unhappiness, because then you become a slave to the food. You're humiliating yourself. You're begging the food. The food is lower than you. Don't beg food. Use food like the master of the ship uses fuel.
How do you
You
yeah.
walk into the kitchen. There's something lying there on the counter, whatever it is, food. You say, "Oh, I'm going to eat that." No, no, wait, 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 wait. If you're eating it as a reflex, then the food is your master and you are the slave. If you remind yourself of that, say, "Excuse me, I'll eat when I decide, not when the food decides. I am not a slave." A little,
that's an
little.
interesting so how is somebody pinpointing that this, how is somebody increasing that space between that stimulus and response to where they're recognizing it's the food that's calling me, or it's an actual hunger? Because honestly, I feel like I could go a whole day if I without necessarily eating
Mm-hmm. And wouldn't that be healthy?
sometimes.
Yes. Intermittent fasting. It's a very good idea. But
I recommend it quite often, and I do it myself.
yes. So here's the thing. If it's lunchtime and you're sitting down to lunch, fine. You're the boss. It's your schedule, and you are now scheduled for lunch. But it's not lunchtime. Okay, fine. You're in the mood for some food, right? You're in the mood for some carbs. So you want to find something in the kitchen like spaghetti. Well, there's no spaghetti, but there is some cake. Say, okay, fine, I'll eat the cake. No, you didn't come looking for cake. Don't eat it. Just because it's there. In other words, follow your original plan. Don't get derailed. So you come across a food you haven't even been thinking about, but because you saw it, and because it's there, you got to eat it. No, no, you're not on my agenda. I didn't come looking for you. I'm not interested in you. Just because you're there, I'm not going to eat it.
So of course takes a lot of practice of building and it's a skill. Ultimately, it seems like we're working on really becoming more present. That's what
And it's
it's
a little bit of a self-respect thing.
yeah.
I don't let food manipulate me. I'm too proud for that. Too arrogant. That is probably the healthiest approach to food in general.
Hmm.
Not dieting and not worrying about your health. Worry about your dignity. Don't degrade yourself when it comes to eating. And the same is true with sex. You're being intimate with your wife. That's fine. That's good. That's kosher. But don't degrade yourself. Don't come into the bedroom with your tongue hanging out. Stay on top of the situation. Don't become a slave to it. So you're going to be intimate like a mensch because it's the right thing to do. It's your duty, it's your plan, it's your schedule. It's you, not it. Don't lose yourself. Don't surrender so easily to whatever appeals to you. Let it serve you. You don't serve it. So it's just a matter of human dignity.
Yeah.
I guess in a sense we should all be a little bit anorexic. We should all find eating a little distasteful.
Why do we eat in the first place?
Yeah, exactly. It's humiliating. Here, I picked the vegetables from the garden before the rabbits got to it, so now you can have it. Oh, good, I beat the rabbit. It's degrading.
We're obviously talking a lot about our approach to food, but it also applies to um, just life in general. So how would you, I mean, how I would kind of articulate this, like if we were to put these into five or however many, um, mindsets for health and for approaching these challenges that we face, whether it's eating emotionally or sometimes it can even we can resort to other addictions or even reading other kind of, let's say, distractions or escapes, even if it's a good, the quote unquote right thing, we could be doing it the wrong way. Obviously I don't want to put it into polarities of right and wrong, but a beneficial, the beneficial thing, but in a unhealthy approach. So, and this applies not just to food, like I said, but to every area of life. And often the quality is better than the quantity. How would you, I would say this number one mindset is that ultimately when we're present, we are the master, we are most effective. So somebody listening and wanting to take notes and kind of to remember the key takeaways, what other mindsets would you um, recommend or say are the keys for this healthy mindsets?
Healthy mindset is more important than health. People are so conscious of the health issues when it comes to food. But what they're thinking is, how healthy is this food? That's not the question. The question is
I
how,
think about that a lot, honestly.
yes, but the question is, how healthy are you?
Interesting.
The food doesn't have to be healthy.
Well, see, that's gonna hmm, go on.
If the food goes rotten and dies tomorrow, nobody's going to make a funeral. The food doesn't have to stay healthy. You
but
have to be healthy.
but Rabbi, obviously I don't mean to cut off, but the food is information. When we take that in, and we have this with the science, but our gut, the food comes in into our gut and needs to know, if we're eating processed foods, it's going to store it as fat and therefore you won't be healthy.
Okay, so people correct me whenever I say healthy food, they say healthful. Food
Health,
can be healthful. The food doesn't have to be healthy.
the food itself.
Right. So becoming an expert on chemistry, knowing every chemical that goes into the food and goes into your body, that's not necessary. Be a healthy person. A healthy person is attracted to the food that is most healthful without becoming
Very interesting, what the focus is on. Am I eating the food that's healthy, or am I the healthy person and eating healthful? Healthful?
yeah, that's the right word.
Very interesting. Please proceed.
So the hang up on which food, how much food, much better to focus on why are you eating at all? Maintain control of yourself. Then you won't eat too much. You won't eat too often. You won't eat when you're in a bad mood. You'll eat like a mensch. Instinctively, you will be attracted to the food that works for you, not to the food that is killing you. So I think if you really get busy with analyzing the food, but you're not being a mensch, it's not going to help. It just becomes a distraction, an obsession,
Craving.
and you don't get healthy. You start to look miserable because you know this food is not healthy, that food is not healthy, and you don't know what to do with yourself. So let's be healthy people. And then we'll match the food to be as healthful as we are. It literally is the fulfillment of the instruction, which is a most amazing piece of wisdom. Eat for a heavenly purpose. Heavenly purpose doesn't mean something otherworldly or saintly. Heavenly purpose means you are heaven compared to the food. Because there are 7 heavens. Yeah. Where to the food you are heaven. Because it's just a vegetable.
Yeah.
Or a mineral or an animal. And you're the human being. So to them you are heaven. Eat for a heavenly purpose. Don't become dependent on the food. The food depends on you to bring it up to heaven. And to the food, you are heaven. So if the food can nurture you, you have elevated the food, not degraded yourself. So one of the things we need to think about in general, isn't it embarrassing that my existence depends on things that are way inferior to me? I'm the one who's intelligent. I'm the one who's talented. I'm the one who has a mission from God. I'm the one who can destroy the planet. And I'm dependent on a vegetable that can't do anything. Let it humble you a little. And you can be a little resentful. Who did this to me? Who did this to me? I don't want to be dependent on food. I don't want to be obsessed with food.
It's really the healthy approach ultimately, because you could also, as some traditions may have it, you could completely transcend and not need food, but we're approaching it in a way where we're still eating the food, but like you mentioned earlier, it's not the food that's feeding us, but it's using the food, elevating the food by also taking that energy from the food and how then we utilize that.
Right. Metabolizing the food. What does that mean? You can look at it scientifically, medically, or metabolizing the food means change it from being a vegetable to being a human, from being an animal to becoming a human. It becomes you. That's a giant step up.
You are what you eat.
You eat becomes what you are.
You are what you eat, ate. You ever hear that one?
But the objective is for the food that you're eating to become you, not you become it. So if you're eating an animal, don't become the animal. The animal becomes you if you metabolize. But if you can't metabolize, it's not becoming you, so it's not nurturing you. It's just coming in and out. So if you don't maintain your level as a human, you're not letting it metabolize. You've lowered yourself to the same level as the animal. So it went in as animal and it comes out as animal. Didn't do much for you. So you have to think of food as being raised.
Hmm.
And that's why eating an animal, by the way, like on Yom Tov, you're supposed to eat some meat. When you're eating an animal, you're actually eating the vegetable too.
That it ate.
That it ate,
You are what you eat ate.
right? And the vegetable is nurtured by mineral,
Yeah.
water and earth, right? Sunshine. So you're taking,
Elevating all the kingdoms.
right, but elevating it to what? To a guy whose tongue is hanging out, oh, and drooling over the food? No, then you're the animal. So you want the food to feed the human in you. So stay a human. Don't become a vegetable.
Okay.
I have a fascinating idea in alternative medicine. A person comes to a doctor and says, "Doctor, my back, it's falling to pieces. I'm coming apart." Or a person says, "My back, it's killing me." Or the person says, "My back is so weak. It's so what is the word? Uh, Without exercise, it's so
Weak.
something." A person who says my back is killing me, that's the animal in you that is talking.
Mm.
Because in
Well, it's I
the
see.
animal world, it's eat or be eaten.
And it's identifying with that pain.
Right. So it's killing me means you're an animal fighting another animal and it's winning. Because to the animal, survival is the big issue. So when we say it's killing me, it means I'm not surviving. That's the animal in you defending itself. If you say I'm falling apart, that's the mineral in you. Right? A mineral doesn't die and it doesn't wither. It rusts. Right? It comes apart. So when you say I'm falling apart, I'm going to pieces, that's the mineral in you speaking.
Hmm.
And when you say I am neglected, undernourished, that's the vegetable in you. You're not getting enough sunshine, you're not getting enough water, you're not getting enough soil, you're neglected. What would the human in you say?
There's pain in my back. Can you check it out?
I've got stuff to do and this is getting in my way. So, Doc, fix me up so I can get back to work. In other words, as a human being, I have a mission. I got to get back to my mission. So you're staying above. You're not part of the food chain. Don't become part of the food chain.
Mm-hmm.
You're superior to food. And I think maybe, in some way, the person who's anorexic is feeling like I'm losing my human status. Why must I eat food? Why must I beg food to give me life? My dignity is being taken away. It's disgusting. Yeah, for a human being to lower himself to the level of a vegetable is pretty disgusting. See, nobody notices that side of anorexia.
Mm.
There's a spiritual element to it. The dignity of being a human being. And they're so right. Eating can be so degrading to a human being that it should never happen. So the anorexic is in some way saying, I don't want to be dependent on food. It's not just I want to look good. I think I'm fat. That's the most superficial part of the whole thing. The deeper part of anorexia is I'm a human being. Why are you feeding me grass? Or the animal that eats grass? What about my human condition? Give me a little dignity. So it's a positive sensitivity that is going too far.
Hmm.
So I once said to this woman who was anorexic, I said, "You are so right. Eating is the most disgusting, the most humiliating thing in the world. And I don't know why God does this to us. He makes us human on the one hand, and that makes us dependent on stuff that is grass. It's humiliating." Well, actually, it's humbling. So we have to swallow our pride and eat something.
Healthful.
If you do it that way, you will eat healthful because you're in charge. You're not giving up your dignity. You will choose the food, you will choose the time, you will choose the amount because you're in control.
Reconnecting with our body, with our intuition, because that often will guide us what we really want to eat, or
Yeah,
what is satiating, really satiating.
if you're not a slave to the food, you will naturally choose the amount of food that is right for you, the type of food that is right for you, because you barely want to eat in the first place.
So we really focused on the nutritional aspect, food today, with the mindset, like I mentioned earlier, can be applied to other areas. But how, what's a practice somebody can take away in order to build that awareness, to see how it manifests, not in maybe just how they're eating, but other areas of their life?
It impacts directly on your sexuality because the hunger for food and the hunger for sex are very similar. The way you handle one, that's how you will handle the other. So a person who eats greedily, can't grab the food fast enough, is not going to be a very good partner in a sexual relation. It's going to be greedy. Um, the person who doesn't know when to stop is going to be out of control.
So it's really nothing to do with the food or the intimate relations. It's this is how a person is, this is how a character is manifesting in different areas of their life. If it shows up in one, most likely in other areas as well.
So this is an important insight and understanding of sexuality. One of the rules for eating is eat until you're not hungry. Most people eat until they have no appetite. That's deadly. You should never kill your appetite, just satisfy your hunger. So after you're no longer hungry, you still have appetite, right? You can always have some dessert, but you don't have to. So never eat until your appetite is gone, because having appetite is part of life. You know, eating to where you have no appetite is like having sex until you have no desire anymore. No desire? That's not good. You don't satiate your sexuality because you,
Full.
yeah, you got to stay sexual because you got to be alive.
Hmm.
The hunger has to be satisfied, not the capacity. So eat until your stomach is not feeling empty. Don't eat until your stomach is feeling bloated. The same with sex.
Hmm.
Don't become, don't become a glutton sexually because it's so common. You got to have sex until you can't take anymore. That's terrible. The appetite should never be um, overwhelmed, just the hunger. Then the eating is healthy, the sex is healthy, the person is healthy. So I think I mentioned last time we spoke, I came home one day when I was a teenager, just once. I never did it again. I came home from yeshiva and I said to my mother, "What's for dinner?" And my mother said, "Food. What are you worried about?"
Such a traumatic experience. I'm just kidding.
It was, but it was such a powerful lesson. Like, what is this, a restaurant? You want a menu? We're going to have some food. Food that satisfies your hunger. If you're asking what's for dinner, you're toying with your appetite. Don't play with your appetite. So
Powerful.
Rambam, as a doctor, puts it very, very simply. Go to sleep hungry. A little bit. What do you mean a little bit hungry? How much is a little bit hungry? It means with an appetite. Don't
Hmm.
kill your appetite. So when people say, "Oh, I couldn't eat another bite," well, you ate way too much.
I think we've all been there before,
Mm-hmm.
especially on Shabbat and Yom Tov. Thankfully, Shabbats are earlier nowadays.
So people say, "Oh, I'm full. Oh, you have some of those. Oh, okay. We'll eat some of those. Wait, you said you were full. So you still have appetite. Well, that's good. Don't kill it."
Hmm. I think I would just want to add that when somebody's working on their character traits and therefore their approach and ultimately becoming healthy and eating healthful foods, in the process of this change or transformation, um, a mindset to have would be to, approach it with enthusiasm, that even though, it's not just an automatic switch, and let's say you catch yourself eating emotionally or just and getting full like we're talking about. If you can, recognize that this is part of, like, you have the intention that you're building towards it not being dependent on it, but it filling you up, then that process of transformation will be a lot more, not just enjoyable, but it'll be quicker, because of obviously we can't, what does David Melech is Ivdu Hashem b'simcha. So it's if we're responding or reacting to these approaches in a regretful or guilty way, it'll just lead to more of that.
There are actually people who, when they're hungry, become nasty. They're nice people, but when they're hungry, you got to get out of their way. What is that?
Emotion.
When they're hungry, they can't hear you. They can't listen. They have no tolerance. They got to eat. Is that not humiliating? Because you're hungry, you cannot be a mensch? Give me the food. Give me the food. Hey, calm down. We all do that to a certain degree. Our hunger cripples us from being human. I think the best practice, not complicated, you don't have to go out and buy anything like a scale or an exercise equipment. No. Eat less. Eat less. That's it. Yep, you put something on your plate, don't ever add more. You finished your plate, you've done it. Enough. And even what you have on the plate, don't eat everything. Leave a little bit. Why? Just to show that you're in charge. Maintain control. No, I'm not going to eat, down to the last drop. I'm going to stop when I say stop.
Well, a lot of us grew up with the, with the rule, you got to finish your plate and lick it clean. So we got to work on changing that.
That's a European thing. When we were starving and we had no food, and whatever you had on the plate, you better eat it because that's all there's going to be for 24 hours before we find another morsel of. But now, no. The opposite. Leave something on the plate. And if there are two foods you can help yourself with, or help yourself to, take the one you like less. It's food. Don't be so picky. No, but I like the other one. It's a little more, it's a little more crunchy. Don't do that. Don't do that.
Wait, how come? Because at the same time, it's also, we want to treat ourselves. That's not unhealthy.
If it's a constant, it's unhealthy.
It's constant, of
Right?
course.
A treat is once a week, not
Not
4 times a day.
Okay, so that's a very big.
It stops being a treat after a while.
Yeah.
But it's important with children.
Hmm.
Young children. One of the first things you want to teach them is not to be picky. It's food. Eat it or don't eat it. Don't make a big deal. So we really are harming our children. We say, you want one of these or one of these? You want ketchup with that? You want the ketchup here or you want the ketchup? Don't come on. Here's food. Eat whatever you want. Don't eat. Don't make a ceremony out of eating. Children are so finicky about their food. It's not healthy. Then they're going to get that way about their sex. Not like that. Not like that. Not with her. Not with. Come on. Too picky. Too hung up.
It's interesting. There's a fine balance, because you also don't want to be too
Indifferent.
Indifferent.
I don't see that happening anytime soon.
Wow.
Got
Well wrapped. Yeah.
a long way to go before we reach that stage.
But it's having having a healthy attachment, liking the things, going for the things that you enjoy, or even the things that you want, but not being too picky. Sometimes we want the chocolate ice cream, but if there's no chocolate but there's vanilla, that'll do today.
Look, but with most children, if they want a chocolate ice cream and you give them vanilla,
They'll cry. Get it in.
yeah, it's a crisis in their life.
Yeah.
We don't have chocolate. They want vanilla. Okay, come on.
So even that's another, just to kind of begin concluding, but a mindset that, if something isn't there for us available, how do we can shift in that moment, instead of um, seeing it as something missing. Oh, I can't have this day, to, well, I can try this. How does this maybe go? It's a healthy
Yeah,
switch.
vanilla is food too, you know. Yeah.
Well, Rabbi, just to, I know you have the things remaining today. It's always a treat just to get on the phone again, or on the Zoom again with you, to continue this series. Thank God. I really enjoy speaking with you. It's like I said, it's a real treat, and I think today one of the main takeaways I have, just to focus really on the mindset, is ultimately, when we're present, we are in charge. We are using the food, not it using us, and therefore we can elevate it. And the food that the food ate. Um, Another key was just really approaching everything in a healthful, being healthy and eating healthful foods. And really, we talked a little about nutrition and sitting down to eat, but when it comes to any challenge we experience, when we can approach it with an enthusiasm, a curiosity, and take, in a sense, ourselves out of it, whether it's like you said with the example with a person coming to the doctor, if we don't identify with the pain, and in a sense, like you mentioned, lowering to ourselves to the animal part or the mineral part of us, but rather this is pain that we're experiencing, and it's hindering our performance of our
As you,
purpose, then we can not only heal it in a quicker way, but it also won't affect our mission as well.
and now we're discovering, just to conclude, uh, if the animal in us is suffering, like my shoes are killing me or my back is killing me, it's not that dangerous. If I feel neglected, my muscles are flabby, I got no tone, like a withered flower, okay, it's the vegetable in you. And if you feel like you're falling apart, or you're getting stiff, like inflexible, that's the mineral in you. Also not dangerous. But when the human in you is suffering, that's when a person comes and says, I don't see a purpose in living. That's dangerous. Because if a human being is really frustrated with his humanness, that's the end. So when is your human part suffering? When it doesn't have a purpose. And that should be taken much more seriously than my back is killing me. So if you lose your purpose, you've lost it all. Your back is killing you, or you're going to have to lie down for a while.
or eat better foods,
Right.
healthful foods,
Yeah, or get an
antioxidant rich foods. Get
get a,
that inflammation out of that back.
get an adjustment, do a little exercise. It's not the end of the world. But if you don't see a purpose to your being, that's got to get fixed quick. So thank you for this opportunity. These are really crucial subjects we're talking about. This is not trivia.
Yeah. I mean, this is part of my purpose, my passion as well, to help individuals with that mindset and that approach, and going through that process, because a lot of the times it's stuff we all know and have heard and intellectually understand, but that's part of the brain, and how the brain works is to take the stuff that we're talking about, and when is it become a part of you, when it's emotionally understood, when it becomes a part of who you are, because just ultimately the first however many times of practicing sitting down, you know and being the master of the food and eating when you're hungry, it is uncomfortable many times and unpleasant, but like you also shine a light on, is the one part that I took out of what you were saying with going to the doctor, that example, is the words that we're using really are creating our reality, which can be quite scary, but also liberating when we can shift how we describe what we're experiencing. So I think if anybody wants to reconnect and have a call more about that, they can reach out to me on my website, solomonezra.com, or you have many, many videos as well.
It's goodtoknow.org.
It's goodtoknow.org.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Only good news.
That's an interesting saying to me. I hear that quite a bit. Only good news.
That's all we need is good news.